I still wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, even though it's been months since the nightmare began. My name is Commander Daniel Rivers, and I was part of the ill-fated Mars mission, Expedition 14. It was meant to be a groundbreaking venture, a chance to make history and pave the way for future human colonization of the Red Planet. But what we encountered on that forsaken world turned our mission into a horror story that I can't seem to escape. Our journey to Mars was supposed to be routine. We were a seasoned crew, Dr. Emily Lawson, our brilliant geologist, Lieutenant Alex Carter, our engineer, and Dr. Sarah Patel, our astrobiologist. We were prepared for the harsh environment and the loneliness of deep space travel, but nothing could have prepared us for what awaited us on Mars. Our landing was smooth, and we quickly established our base. The initial weeks were filled with excitement and discovery. We collected soil samples, set up experiments, and explored the immediate surroundings. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, until we stumbled upon the anomaly. It was on the 10th day when Sarah discovered something strange in one of the Martian canyons. A metallic object partially buried in the red dust. The object was unlike anything we had seen before, a dark, irregular shape with alien hieroglyphs etched into its surface. Sarah was thrilled and anxious, a mix of excitement and trepidation evident in her voice as she called us over. "Daniel, you need to see this," Sarah said, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and apprehension. "What did you find?" I asked as I approached the site. "This artifact, it's unlike anything we've encountered. The inscriptions, they're not like any known language," Sarah explained, her eyes wide with fascination. We examined the object closely, and despite our best efforts, we couldn't make sense of it. It was as if the artifact defied our understanding of both technology and language. We decided to bring it back to the base for further analysis. The first night after bringing the artifact back was when the real trouble began. It started with small things, disruptions in our equipment, strange noises echoing through the base, and inexplicable drops in temperature. We chalked it up to environmental factors and the challenges of living on Mars. But then things escalated. I was on a routine check of the base when I noticed a strange, shadowy figure moving at the edge of my vision. It was gone before I could turn my head, but the chill it left behind was palpable. I dismissed it as a trick of the mind, fatigue from the long hours and isolation. However, my crew wasn't so easily convinced. "Daniel, something's wrong," Emily said one evening. "I keep seeing these figures. Shadows that shouldn't be there." "I've seen them too," Alex admitted, his voice filled with unease. "I thought it was just me." We decided to conduct a thorough sweep of the base, but we found nothing amiss. The disturbances continued, growing more intense and unsettling. Shadows seemed to move on their own, whispers filled the corridors, and an oppressive sense of dread hung over us. Then, the artifact began to exert an influence of its own. We noticed it changing, its inscriptions seemed to shift and writhe, as if the symbols were alive. We tried to analyze it, but the data came back as gibberish, incoherent and nonsensical. One night, as I was alone in the lab, I heard a faint whisper coming from the artifact. I approached it, feeling an inexplicable compulsion to listen. "Help us. Release us, ****. The voice was barely audible, but it was clear enough to send shivers down my spine. I recoiled, my heart pounding. I knew then that whatever this artifact was, it was not benign. It seemed to be a conduit for something malevolent. The true horror began on the day we were scheduled to return to Earth. We had packed up the artifact and prepared the ship for departure. As we lifted off from Mars, I felt a fleeting sense of relief, but that relief was short-lived. The first signs of trouble appeared during the journey home. The ship's systems began malfunctioning in inexplicable ways, communication errors, navigation glitches, and random power outages. It was as though the ship itself was rebelling against us. One evening, as I was making repairs in the engine room, I heard the whispers again, louder this time. The shadows seemed to coil around me, growing darker and more sinister. I could feel a presence, an intelligence that was both alien and profoundly malevolent. Emily, Alex, Sarah, get to the bridge. We have to address these issues immediately, I ordered over the intercom, my voice tight with anxiety. When they arrived, they found me staring at the malfunctioning controls, my hands shaking. "What's going on, Daniel?" Emily asked, her voice laced with concern. "I don't know. Something's affecting the ship." It's as if we're not alone," I said, my voice faltering. As we tried to regain control of the ship, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. The shadows coalesced into a tangible form, an apparition that hovered at the edge of our vision. We could see it now, a dark, amorphous figure with eyes that seemed to bore into our very souls. "We need to get rid of that artifact," Alex shouted, his voice filled with panic. "It's causing all of this." We agreed, and as we prepared to dispose of it, the figure seemed to grow more agitated. It writhed and howled, its form shifting in a grotesque dance of malice. The ship's systems failed completely, plunging us into darkness. In a desperate bid to escape, we jettisoned the artifact into space. The figure's anguished wails echoed through the ship before fading away, leaving us in eerie silence. Our arrival on Earth was marked by an eerie calm, but the horror was far from over. As we disembarked, we noticed something troubling. The crew members who had been exposed to the artifact began to exhibit strange symptoms, hallucinations, severe mood swings, and an overwhelming sense of dread. I tried to convince myself it was just a side effect of the isolation and stress. But then, it began to affect others. The whispers returned, and the shadows seemed to follow us, creeping into our daily lives. The agency's headquarters was soon plagued by bizarre occurrences, disruptions, sightings of shadowy figures, and a pervasive sense of unease. Dr. Carter, who had been overseeing our mission, was among the first to experience the haunting presence. One evening, he called me into his office, his face pale and drawn. "Daniel, something's happening here," Dr. Carter said, his voice trembling. "We're experiencing the same disturbances we had on Mars." I nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "It's the artifact. It left a mark, a lingering presence. We need to find a way to contain it." We assembled a team to investigate the disturbances, but the shadowy presence seemed to elude us. It appeared and disappeared at will, a specter of our own making. The entity seemed to feed on fear, growing stronger with each encounter. In the months that followed, the facility became a place of dread. The haunting presence remained a constant, a reminder of the consequences of our curiosity and ambition. We were left with more questions than answers, grappling with the knowledge that we had unwittingly brought something malevolent into our midst. To this day, I cannot forget the terror of those days. The artifact's shadow lingers, and I often wonder if it still follows me, a dark echo of our failed expedition. The universe is vast and filled with mysteries, some of which we are better off leaving unexplored. As I sit here now, reflecting on the ordeal, I am haunted by the knowledge that there are forces out there, forces we cannot comprehend. And sometimes, when the night is particularly still, I hear the whispers again, a chilling reminder of what we brought back from Mars. The night I realized something had gone terribly wrong was just like any other at NASA's Research and Development Facility. I was Dr. Nathaniel Ross, a senior scientist working on a top-secret project involving experimental quantum mechanics. This project, dubbed the Shadow Experiment, was supposed to be a revolutionary leap in our understanding of spacetime. The idea was to create a controlled environment where we could observe phenomena beyond the known dimensions. It sounded ambitious, almost fantastical, and the potential breakthroughs promised to redefine our grasp of reality itself. The facility was abuzz with excitement and tension as we approached the final phase of our experiment. We had successfully tested the containment field in smaller trials, and now it was time for the full-scale experiment. Our team included some of the brightest minds in the field: Dr. Emily Carter, our lead engineer, Dr. Samuel Grant, a quantum physicist with an unyielding curiosity, and Dr. Julia Marks, our expert in theoretical physics. I was the project lead, responsible for ensuring everything ran smoothly. We gathered in the control room, the heart of our operations, equipped with an array of monitors displaying real-time data and simulations. The experimental chamber, situated in a separate, highly secure section of the facility, was a marvel of modern engineering. It was designed to manipulate and observe quantum fields in ways never attempted before. "Everyone ready?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with anticipation. Emily, adjusting her glasses, gave a determined nod. "Ready when you are." Samuel, peering intently at the data projections, added, "Let's make history." Julia, always calm under pressure, smiled reassuringly. "We've prepared for every contingency. Let's proceed." With a final check of our systems, I initiated the activation sequence. The chamber's containment field powered up, and a low hum filled the control room. We watched as the quantum field stabilized and the experimental parameters were met. For a few minutes, everything seemed perfect. The data was streaming in as expected, and our monitors displayed the anticipated results. Then, the unexpected happened. A sharp, dissonant hum pierced the room, followed by a blinding flash of light that illuminated the entire chamber. The lights flickered, and the control room plunged into an eerie silence. My heart raced as I scrambled to assess the situation. "Emily, what's happening?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice calm. Emily's fingers flew over her keyboard. "The containment field is destabilizing. We're losing control." Before I could respond, the monitors flashed erratic images, fractals, shifting patterns, and indescribable shapes that seemed to warp and twist. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I realized that something had gone horribly wrong. "Shut it down. Shut it down now," I yelled, my voice cracking with urgency. Emily scrambled to override the controls, but the system was unresponsive. The chamber's hum grew louder, and the light intensified. It felt as though reality itself was bending around us. In a desperate move, I hit the emergency shutdown button, severing power to the chamber. The light vanished as abruptly as it had appeared, leaving us in stunned silence. The chamber's systems rebooted, but the damage was done. We had no idea what had just occurred or the implications it might have. "Is everyone okay?" I asked, looking around at my team. They nodded, though their faces were pale and drawn. We conducted a thorough examination of the chamber and the surrounding systems. Everything seemed intact, but there was an unsettling sense of foreboding that hung in the air. I dismissed my team for the night, intending to review the data and assess the situation further. That evening, as I worked alone in the control room, I began to notice something odd. The temperature in the room fluctuated wildly, and shadows seemed to move on their own. The once familiar hum of the machinery now sounded almost sinister. I shrugged it off as stress-induced paranoia and continued my work. But then, the reports started coming in, strange anomalies around the facility. Equipment malfunctioning, unexplained noises, and unsettling disturbances. I dismissed these reports as coincidences until the situation escalated. It began with subtle signs, a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision, fleeting shadows that vanished when I turned around. Then, it grew more pronounced. I started hearing whispers, voices that seemed to come from nowhere. Staff members reported seeing figures lurking in the corners of their vision, only to find nothing when they looked. One night, as I was reviewing the data in my office, the temperature dropped dramatically. My breath fogged up in the freezing air, and a shadowy figure appeared in the corner of the room. It was vague and indistinct, but its presence was unmistakable. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure moved closer, and I could hear a faint, chilling whisper. "You shouldn't have looked. I snapped back to reality, my mind racing. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, but the experiences continued. The phenomena began affecting everyone in the facility. It was as if something had followed us from the chamber, something that defied our understanding of reality. I called an emergency meeting with my team, desperately trying to make sense of what was happening. Emily, Samuel, Julia, I began, my voice trembling. Something went wrong in the experiment. It's like we opened a door to something that shouldn't be here. Julia, her face ashen, nodded slowly. We've been experiencing strange occurrences as well. It's like something is manifesting around us. Samuel, his eyes wide with fear, added, we need to figure out what we unleashed. Whatever it is, it's not just a glitch or a malfunction. It's affecting us. We decided to investigate further. We revisited the data from the experiment, analyzing every detail in the hope of finding clues. The results were inconclusive, and the more we dug, the more unsettling the data became. The anomalies seemed to defy the laws of physics and reality. As days passed, the disturbances grew more intense. Shadows moved with a will of their own, cold spots appeared without warning, and disembodied whispers filled the air. Staff members began to report seeing figures, apparitions of people who were not there. The atmosphere in the facility became increasingly oppressive, and the once bustling research center felt like a haunted, abandoned place. One evening, as I was walking through the facility, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A shadowy figure was standing at the end of the hallway, its form shifting and undulating as if it were made of smoke. It seemed to be watching me. I felt a cold rush of air as it moved closer, and I could hear the same chilling whisper from before. You opened the door. Now you must face the consequences. I sprinted back to the control room, my mind racing. I had to find a way to contain whatever we had released. I contacted Dr. Carter, explaining the situation as best I could. He was initially skeptical but agreed to investigate. Dr. Carter arrived at the facility, his face filled with concern as he witnessed the disturbances firsthand. The decision was made to evacuate the premises and contain the experiment. We initiated a complete shutdown of the chamber and secured the area. In the following weeks, we conducted a thorough investigation, but we never found a definitive explanation for the phenomena. The facility was temporarily closed, and all research related to the experiment was halted. The results were classified, and the project was officially deemed a failure. The haunting presence remained a mystery. I continued to experience unsettling phenomena long after leaving the facility, but they gradually subsided. I can't explain what we encountered, but I know that the experiment had opened something we were unprepared to face. To this day, I look back on those events with a mix of fear and regret. We were on the brink of something incredible, but we failed to account for the potential dangers. The shadow experiment remains a cautionary tale about the perils of pushing the boundaries of science without considering the consequences. As I sit in my office now, reflecting on those dark days, I can't help but wonder if there are other forces out there, forces that we are not meant to understand. The universe is vast and enigmatic, and sometimes, it's better to leave certain doors closed.